I am so thrilled to welcome Karen James to the World Astrology Summit. A few years ago, I was probably wasting time on Twitter, to be honest, and scrolling through and found some very interesting post from, this astrologer in South Africa about astrology and weather. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is quite cool content. And then it wasn't long after that that you uploaded a video, Karen, of a weather presentation that you had done for another organization at some stage. And I loved the way that you presented the research, the ease of following material. And I thought, yeah, this is somebody that we need to get at the summit. And I'm so thrilled that you have had the time and space and capacity to join us for the Aries Ingress in 2025. I know many people here will be excited to learn about weather forecasting with astrology, and so I know you teach that particular subject, and you're starting to become more known for this globally, which is very exciting. Today, Karen is going to be presenting for us. What are some of the signs and symbols that we can take from weather about what's going on in the world around us? Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Wade. And thank you, everyone, for who's listening and who's listening now and who'll be listening in the future. Slave, be aware that the Lord of all the East is here. A flickering storm cloud shows his lightning to you. These words of deep wisdom reach us across more than 800 years. Rumi's writings are loaded with both astrological imagery and layered meanings. Lord of all the East is both his great teacher, Shams of Tabriz, whose name Shams literally means the sun, as well as our local star and luminary. I just want to get my little annotation up here. Okay, right. So our sun, Lord of all the East, it dominates the day as ruler of the day sect. It dominates the declination graph, which we're going to be doing a lot of declination graph work. It sets both equinox and solstice positions. It defines the tropical zodiac that we Western astrologers love to use. It dominates the seasons by its motion north and south of the celestial equator. And by the cardinal solar ingress charts, it dominates both mundane astrology and specifically weather astrology, which is actually a branch of mundane. Right, so just as a small intro, I'm going to give a few factors about weather astrology as it differs from other astrology. Number one, weather astrology is done locally. So it's done for a specific location, such as Cape Town, such as New York, such as Paris or Poland, or not Poland, a town, Warsaw, something like that. And it's done, the reading is done, the reading of the chart is done relative to a known climate. So one needs at least 5 to 10 years of data for each season at that location. Okay, that's one. Number two, natural weather comes from the west. Why? Because the earth spins on its axis from west to east and it brings the natural weather with it. So, for instance, in America, the weather starts on the west coast and comes across to east. In South Africa, it starts in Cape Town, comes to my part of the world in the Garden Route, moves on to the Eastern Cape. And I'm sure for other continents, very similar. Unnatural weather comes from the east, and it is Saturnian in nature. And when you have Saturn in a major storm signature, it's a warning. Saturn is the greater malefic, and it's a warning of more severe storms that are not helpful and not easy for humans to handle and not easy for our farming activities to manage. So it's unnatural weather. And then When Mother Nature moves and shakes, such as hurricanes, earthquakes, cyclones, we are ants. And we would do well to observe what the wild animals are doing. Birds will flee the path of the intensity of the storm. Elephants move away. So that is one thing we can do when a huge storm is threatening. We can watch what the natural world is doing. Okay. Right. So if we were to do weather astrology for a specific location for the period 20 March of this year to 20 March of next year, so it would be a year's worth of weather astrology, we would need all 4 solar ingress charts, every equinox and every solstice. We don't have the luxury of going, oh, that's a fixed ascendant, and we can sort of pay less attention to the other ingress charts. No, we need all 4. Every season the weather is done, the weather astrology. Then we need 13 lunar quarter charts for each season. They hold for 7 days. And this, okay, going back just a moment, the solar ingress charts, they give us the overall pattern for the season. So they hold until the next cardinal ingress, but they also give specifically the temperature. The lunar quarter charts are specifically the precipitation. The moon rules the water in the weather astrology prediction. And so each chart only holds until the next quarter, so roughly 7 days. For wind, we take Mercury ingress charts. Every single time Mercury goes into a new sign, we take that chart. And as well, we take every station chart, station direct, station retrograde. And as each new phenomenon happens, the other one becomes used. The new one comes into focus and effect. Okay, so that's just what we would need for a whole year for each location. So believe you me, I haven't done that for this talk, and I've used other techniques. So why wild times in my title? Number 1, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which happening on the 20th of Feb 2026. This is a freak storm signature. Per George McCormack and per Kagan, who was my teacher before she passed, and she highly recommended George McCormack's book. It was his correspondence, which was this little book here, which was compiled into a textbook of long-range weather forecasting by David Rohl. George McCormack was one of the founder members of AFA in America. He was an engineer for Bell Telephone Company. He was a trader on the stock exchanges using astrology, and his weather predictions he published in the newspapers way ahead of time, warning aeroplanes about ice on wings and crashes, warning about radio disruptions because of electric storms. He was a rather amazing man, and his book is amazing. It's a small book, but it's loaded and with just the best astrology. All right, so that's number 1. So from his actual book, he gives this description: abnormal atmospheric conditions that endure for weeks and sometimes months, unusual weather extremes that may affect large geographical areas through a whole year. Okay, we will look at this in more detail. Moon out of bounds is the next one factor. Moon went out of bounds for the first time in 2020, and it stays out of bounds until 2030 with the maximum lunastice in Jan of 2025. We are going to be looking at this on a declination graph, so it will all become more visual. Moon out of bounds. Moon, as I mentioned, rules the water in the weather. So we're talking excessive cloud cover, excessive precipitation. It's all precipitation. It's rain, it's hail, snow, sleet. It's the whole shebang. Okay, so for this talk, we are to focus on declination charts. And specifically, we're going to be looking in those out of bounds regions. We're going to be looking in the equatorial region. We're going to consider major stations of like the big the big bold planets and eclipses, which are very heavily involved in big weather phenomena. We are going to be looking at charts of representative cities. I've chosen 2 representative cities, and I'm just going to mention and just give a brief little highlight of astrolocality, which is extensively used in weather forecasting for storm chasing. If one sees a big bunch up, a big aspect, a big storm pattern ahead, you can trace it onto the angles, and that will show you where it's going to originate and how it's going to move across. So it's a really, really helpful technique. Okay, before we begin with charts, we have to deal with a major problem, and that is our planet Earth is bipolar. So why do I say that? Well, we've got a North Pole and a South Pole, literally. And that North Pole is identified by the pole star, which is Polaris. Currently, it does change over 26,000 years, but it's Polaris in the Little Bear or Ursa Minor, and it is seen by using the pointer stars of the plow, pointing up. You just extend that up, you find the pole star. Now, in the south, we don't even see Polaris. What we have to do is we have to look for the Southern Cross, and we extend the long axis of the Southern Cross, and then the very bright pointer stars of Rigel and Hadar and Centaurus, we have to bisect that and extend that line. Where those 2 lines meet, we drop a perpendicular down onto Earth. I'm an early riser, so I get up around about 4 a.m. and I walk from my cottage to my workspace. And I test this almost every morning when there's not cloud cover. And that line drops down on the western wall of my workspace as I'm walking south. And it is absolutely accurate night after night, no matter where in the sky Southern Cross and the pointers are. All right. So also our polar axis is tilted at 23.5 degrees to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun. And this creates the season, as we can see in this picture here. Reason being is that the sun's intensity of heat strikes different points of the Earth at different times of the year. Okay, my 2 representative cities, Athens in the north at 37 north, 23 east, Cape Town in the south at 33 south and 18 east. I've chosen them because they actually have the same climatic Mediterranean climate, and they're roughly on the same longitude. Okay, and more or less like 33 to 37, more or less similar distance from the equator. Okay, why did I really choose them? Number one, Athens is iconic. It's hugely involved in our history of Western astrology, but even weather astrology. They had a beautiful, it's still there, it's called the Temple of the Winds. It's in the Roman Agora in Athens. It measured everything. Yeah, I won't go into details. I will go over time, but yeah. And Athens been settled for 5,000 years. They are ancient. Cape Town been settled for 15,000 years. It was known as Camissa, a place of sweet waters. And Table Mountain, that flat top mountain which the clouds set over like a tablecloth, that is 600 million years old. And it's older than the Himalayan mountains. Okay, and they are great for illustrating the bipolar Earth. All right, so let's look. 20th of March, 2 days ago, the little buds are popping out in Athens. In Cape Town, we've got golden leaves about to fall and the spring breezes. 21 June this year, we're going to have a glorious Mediterranean summer in Athens, and in Cape Town, it's going to be gray and windy and miserable and cold and rainy. Okay, not the best time to visit the beautiful city of Cape Town. 22 September, we've got golden leaves in Athens, and in Cape Town, it's the beginning of the greatest, actually, it's around the time of the greatest flower show on Earth. The spring blossoms in the fynbos microbiome extend across the whole West Coast, and it is just a blaze of hundreds of colors. If you can ever get to the West Coast and Cape Town in the spring, it is an amazing phenomena. It's just mind-blowing. 21 December, we have winter in Athens. This is a rare snow that fell in Athens some years ago. And in Cape Town, the people are on the beaches lapping up the glorious summer sunshine. Okay, so I think that kind of, okay, proves that we have this bipolar season thing going on. All right. So here is the declination graph with just the sun. Okay, this is a lovely S shape that the sun does in the course of a year. This chart is March 2020 to March 2030. March 2025 to March 2026. Okay, so this is the okay, let's start at the equator. The sun in March crosses up from south to north. And this, when it hits that celestial equator, this red line here is celestial equator, Earth's equator projected up into space. We have an equinox, equal day, equal night. And then as it heads up to its most northerly point, we call this the June solstice. The Greeks called it the tropos, the turning point. And so this is the turning point of the sun. And this word tropos is where the word tropical zodiac comes from. Okay, so then the sun turns, comes back towards the equator in September. We have another equinox. It then comes down and its maximum south in December at the southern tropos. It defines the southern outer bounds band, and then it curves back and repeats the whole process year after year. So let's look at this from an Athens perspective, putting in the longitudinal tropical zodiac. 20th of March, we've got 0 Aries. The sun is crossing here. Now, what is happening here is that the sun is exalted at 0 Aries and malefic Saturn is fallen. It is springtime in Athens, but it is autumn in Cape Town. And it is World Astrology Day from a northern perspective. Astrology that we practice originates in the north, but we southerners are very happy to celebrate as well. Now, the sun, okay, then it travels up. We've got Aries, we've got Taurus, we've got Gemini. At the solstice point, we get 0 Cancer. And why Cancer? Well, Cancer is ruled by moon and Leo is ruled by sun. The luminary months are given to the brightest and hottest season of the year. So in Athens, it is a glorious Grecian summer. And at this point, benefic Jupiter is exalted and malefic Mars is fallen. It's summer in Athens, but it's winter in Cape Town. All right, now, as it turns and comes back here, we get 0 Libra on the celestial equator, 22 September. This is where malefic Saturn is exalted and the sun is fallen. Why? Because in Athens, it's starting to become colder. The days will become shorter and autumn arrives. Okay, but in Cape Town, this is 0 Aries, and I'll explain in a while. This is our spring. And so this is the Southern World Astrology Day. And so we invite the Northern Hemisphere to celebrate with us. Okay, as we come down here, we get 0 Capricorn. And 0 Capricorn is, of course, ruled by Saturn. Malefic Mars is exalted and benefic Jupiter is fallen. The archetypal nature of the planets really, really comes out in weather astrology, which is one of the reasons I just love it. So this heralds winter in Athens and summer in Cape Town. So for Athens, it's 0 Capricorn, because we've got Capricorn and Aquarius, both ruled by cold Saturn. Okay. Right, so I think I've proved my point that we have opposed seasons. We've got March, we've got spring, autumn. June, we've got summer, winter. September, we've got autumn, spring, and December, winter, summer. So what do we do about Cape Town? All right, so in weather astrology, this is how we put the tropical zodiac tape measure on the declination graph. Here we have 0 Libra, because at this point, the sun, right now, we are heading into autumn. The autumn winds are arriving, the leaves are turning gold and ready to drop, and so on, getting ready to drop. And then up here at the top, we have 0 Capricorn. And this is going to be our winter. From June, it's our winter. Here is the Southern World Astrology Day, where it's the spring begins. And down at the bottom here in December, this is when we're at the beach, where South Africans are on holiday. And those of us who can get to the beach, we get to the beach. Okay. And then the cycle repeats. All right. Now, I have to confess that trying to do this talk felt like trying to get the Himalayan mountains into a molehill. It's a huge topic, and I'm just taking juicy bits and highlighting. So I can't go through this whole symbolism table. However, I have a free handout. It's called the Basic Symbolism for Weather Astrology. It's a PDF. If you email me at karenjames.skyguide@gmail.com, I will send it to you. You can also, my website's on the pamphlet, and you'll find my email there. I'll happily send it to anyone who wants. Okay, so I'm just going to be highlighting. So this is the spring sign symbolism. Aries is cardinal spring, but the ancient word movable is much more appropriate, because movable means that every day, with each passing day, the season, the temperature moves in the direction of the season, becomes more and more spring-like. In weather, we look at 4 factors: temperature, wind, moisture, and violence. So there is a violence associated with Aries because Mars is the ruler. Okay, Taurus is fixed spring. So the fixed signs, they maintain that temperature for that month. It's the same day after day. It's the intensity of the season. Gemini is mutable spring, and the ancient word common is also more descriptive because there are some days of spring and some days of the forthcoming summer. Right, summer sign symbolism. Here we have cardinal summer, Cancer is cardinal summer, and there is a violence factor attached with downpours. Leo, fixed summer, with violent electrical storms. Leo is dry. Virgo, anything to do with Mercury or the air signs, is windy. So Virgo is blustery, variable winds. Okay. Autumn symbolism. Here we have cardinal autumn is Libra, again windy. Scorpio is the stormiest sign of the zodiac. It is fixed autumn. We have a violence factor of tornadoes and hurricanes. It is extremely hot or extremely cold. It can be extremely sultry, violent winds, extreme dryness, or huge downpours. You know, it's like one or the other. Off the charts, either way. This is our Scorpio sign in weather astrology. Sagittarius, we're looking at mutable or common autumn. And then winter sign symbolism. We have Capricorn, which is cardinal winter. It's cold. And the violence factor is destructive, unseasonal weather, which is not friendly to humans or their farming activities. Aquarius, fixed winter, also cold, but dry. And the violence here is electricity in the atmosphere and lightning. Pisces, it's the common winter, and it's between winter and the coming spring. Okay, right, basic planets. This is the super archetypal planets. So the sun, it's warm and dry. The violence factor with sun is lightning. Isn't it interesting that Rumi's poem reflects this weather astrology? But I do believe Rumi was an astrologer and possibly even a weather astrologer, although I can't prove that. Moon. Moon is very wet with huge rain as a violence factor. Mercury is very windy with strong winds as the violence factor. So these are our 3 iconic planets that create those 3 categories of charts that we look at: cardinal ingress, lunar quarters, and Mercury ingresses and stations. All right, here are our beautiful benefics. No violence at all for them, thank you. And Venus brings beneficial rains that are good for humans and good for farming. Jupiter generally brings good outdoor weather, dryish, except if Jupiter's in Pisces or Cancer, then it can also bring lovely rains. Mars, okay, these are the iconic malefics. So Mars, it's hot, but it's also extremes. Hot or cold extremes. It's stormy, it's dry. The violence factor is turbulence. It is a signature for fires and droughts as well as storms. But when I see Mars out of bounds in the declination chart, I quake because like Cape Town burns when Mars is out of bounds. I've tracked it several times, and yeah, it's scary, and internationally as well. Yeah, it's not fun. And droughts, Mars is also very impactful in a drought signature as well. Saturn, it's cold, but it also brings extremes of boiling or freezing because it's malefic, it's nasty, it's not trying to be friendly to us. Extreme dry or extreme wet and floods, snowstorms, blizzards. It's stormy weather. It's called stormy Saturn in weather astrology. All right. Our basic invisibles. Here we have Uranus. It's sudden stuff. It's sudden change in temperature. It's sudden gusts, sudden squalls, sudden cloud bursts, hail. Especially with Saturn, you get hail. It's record-setting weather as well as lightning for violence. Neptune, we're looking at poor visibility, fogs and mists and all that kind of thing. Basically cloud on the ground, as well as raining frogs, unusual things happening. It is freak weather. It's like off the charts storms happen with a Neptune signature. Pluto, we've got extremes. We've got violent, enduring, destructive winds. We have got sleet with Saturn. It is destructive weather. Okay. Basic aspect symbolism, only applying aspects. Separating if you want to look into the past. So conjunctions are the most powerful, but up with conjunctions at the same status is parallels of declination. So parallels of declination are when two planets cross on that declination chart. Basically, they're the same degree north of the celestial equator or the same degree south. I'll show you on the charts. It is the most powerful, and we assess the effect from the combination of planet and sign. Then we've got our hard aspects. They are our harmonic 8, opposition squares, semi-squares, sesquiquadrate, as well as the contraparallel, which by definition, if something is 13 degrees north of the celestial equator and another planet is 13 degrees south, then those are said to be in contraparallel. It is violent. It disturbs the atmosphere, especially if you've got conflicting planets like a hot planet with a cold planet. You're going to get some violent weather. Now, our soft aspects are sextile and trine. They bring fair weather generally. However, if we have Mars trine Saturn, then that will overwhelm the trine and we will have some nasty weather. Right, so here are some charts. I've drawn the Aries ingress chart for Athens here, 20th of March. And just to show you that at the moment, well, on the 20th, 2 days ago, Neptune was sitting at 29 Pisces, 29.37, Saturn at 23 Pisces. That is only a 6.5 degree difference. And this chart here is for the actual conjunctions on 20 September next year, when they both meet at 0 Aries 45. This is for Athens using the conventional tropical zodiac. And what will happen is these planets are going to wobble back and forth. This is the wobble. So there's Saturn starting at 23. There is Neptune at 29. They are going to turn, station retrograde roughly at 2 degrees. And then Neptune will pull back to 29, Saturn to 25. And then they station here and then they go forward and they meet up in the forward direction at 0 Aries. Now, tiny gap is activated by translation. So translation of light is when a faster moving planet connects with one slow moving planet and then straight after connects with another slow-moving planet. So take this Mars here. On the 20th, Mars was at 20 Cancer. Mars moves roughly 30 degrees a day, although it's just come off station, so it's not quite up to 30, not 30 degrees, 30 minutes. It's not quite up to 30. But what it's going to do, it's going to trine Saturn in Pisces, and then it will, let's say 13, 14, 15 days later, it's going to trine Neptune. Now, I have observed in storms in the past, this translation plays a big role. And even moon can bring extra precipitation. It basically triggers that signature, which is, as we said, it's freak storms. So it triggers that in various ways, depending on which planet is doing that activation. All right. Now I've done the same for Cape Town. So whereas with Athens, we had Pisces and Aries. So Pisces is a gentle sign, but Aries is a violent sign. So it's going to be a bit of a contrast between those two factors with the freak storm in the Northern Hemisphere. It's going to be not so bad, but possibly quite rainy with Pisces. And then the Aries is going to kick in and bring some extra violence into the factor. In the Southern Hemisphere, we have Neptune at 29 Virgo 37 and Saturn at 23 Virgo 04. And they're going to meet up in Libra. Both of these are air signs. Well, but this is a Mercury rule. This is an air sign. They're both windy signs. So we, in our freak storm signature, we're going to have extra wind factors going on. That's what the point that I wanted to make here. That's why we have to do the opposing of the signs in the Southern Hemisphere so that we can do accurate weather astrology. All right, here we are at my beloved declination graph. This is a 36-year lunar declination graph. I'll show you how the moon every month does what the sun does in a year. But this is squashed up moon activity. And what we can see is over years, the moon curves inward and outward at its maximum lunasis. So this pattern here is ongoing. And the lunar north node is at 0 Aries when just a huge rainstorm just come down here. Okay, I'm going to do my best. So the lunar north node is at 0 Aries when the moon is at maximum lunasis. And the lunar north node is at 0 Libra when the moon is at minimum lunasis. South and north, it's symmetrical across the celestial equator. Okay, so in 2020, this is when the moon out of bounds for the first time. It's a 10-year out of bounds cycle. Every single cycle it's 10 years. And for this particular cycle, the maximum lunasis was at 28 degrees 45. And that's quite far out of bounds because the boundary is 23 degrees 26. So, and then the minimum is around 18. But now, why the strange weather? Why the strange socio-political shenanigans and chaos and challenges? Well, in 2020, well, in this period, let's say in this period, we have five giant conjunctions. And these are, 2020, we had Saturn conjunct Pluto, followed by Jupiter conjunct Pluto, followed by Jupiter conjunct Saturn. 2021, we had Saturn square Uranus. Not a conjunction, but still two giant planets of very different, very different nature. And then in 2024, in April, we had Jupiter conjoining Uranus, another giant conjunction which stirred up the world weather. One only has to just look at weather happenings for 2024. It wasn't a fun year in world weather either. Okay, and then here we sit in 2025 and 2026, Saturn conjoining Neptune. So this is also part of a wall signature. So I gave a talk in 2021 in Plettenberg Bay, early 2021, to for a friend. It was to a group of therapists because everyone is coming out of lockdown, and so I looked at this pattern of giant conjunctions, bunching up of significant outer planet conjunctions. And the last time we had such a bunch up was in World War II, and the time before that was World War One. The difference was, though, that by the time of the last conjunction, which for us is going to be in February of 2026, the peace treaties had been signed, it had been sorted out, things were calming down. But their wars started earlier. Our wars, the invasion of Ukraine was only on the 24th of February 2022. And then the Israeli hostage calamity, that was on the 7th of October 2023. So they were actually in between these two giant conjunctions here, or these two sets of giant conjunctions. And so we're still on all kinds of brinks. We're everybody's sitting on tenterhooks, hoping that someone can broker some peace deals, that nobody does something crazy and lets off something they shouldn't, and that kind of thing. So that these giant conjunctions have really amped up this particular declination, lunar declination cycle. But I found it fascinating that, this 2020, which is a year we'll never forget. I would not have believed it possible that the world could shut down, and yet it did in 2020. Anyway, the maximum has been reached, and now we are slowly curving our way back down to normality. Out of bounds region is over the top, excessive, destructive. It's not a fun place. All right. The next thing I would like to show is the supermoons. So I'm a great fan of Richard Nolly. He's in the modern day Arizona American astrologer, and he's been doing astrology for 50 years, very interested in the astronomy as well. He produces an annual world timeline report. He is the first astrologer since Kepler to have a phrase that he coined, adopted by the astronomy community. It's supermoon. He used Blue Star software to arrive at his 90% of maximum perigee. Perigee means closest to Earth. So there are two varieties of supermoon. There's a luminous supermoon, there's a stealth supermoon. Luminous is full moon, stealth is new moon. And here they are for the year. We have a super new moon, that's a stealth supermoon, solar eclipse coming up, 29 March. There it is there. The shading in the background is the seasons. And these little gray lines, this is the moon doing her thing every single month. As I said, she does what the sun does in a year, in a month. Then on the 27th of April, we have another stealth supermoon, out of bounds. Then on the 5th of November, we have a super luminous full moon, 5th November, not quite out of bounds, and then another out of bounds super full moon, 4th of December. So again, these are also big signatures for storms, for earthquakes, for all kind of things, for human quakes. All right. Here I've taken the same declination graph, and onto it I've added the curvy Mercury, busy Mercury bouncing around, and I've added the red Mars. So Mars basically takes 2 years to do what the sun does in a year. And what I've marked up here, we are currently in a Mars maximum period, as defined by Richard Nolly. It's Mars at maximum elongation. McCormack, in his book, said we have to take into account maximum elongations. I mean, he was so amazingly ahead of his time, or so amazingly brilliant. I don't quite know which. All right. So Mars, we have from 14th of October this year, we have had the Mars maximum cycle began. Richard Nully calls this maximum elongation Mars max. And it's going to finish up, it's still current, it will finish up on the 21st of April. So we're not out of the woods yet. We've got a maximum elongation Mars that gives that Mars extra vuma, extra potency. And Mars is still out of bounds until early April. So what I want to highlight here is these Mars and Mercury in the out of bounds regions. As well as I've drawn these little pink clouds, little circular clouds, where we have a parallel. Okay, so this is Mars parallel Moon, Mars parallel Sun, Mars parallel Mercury, Mars parallel the Moon over the celestial equator, and so on. Mercury, these curves, some of them are related to the retrogrades, the stations. Here's Mercury stationing on 15 March, stationing retrograde. Here is April stationing direct, and so on as we go through. These ones here are just turning points here, there, and there. Okay, and then
Hey,
Mercury
sorry,
does
just
go
gonna,
up bound.
Karen, sorry, interrupting just for a second to give you your notice. I should have given you probably about 5 minutes ago. So, we've got a good, 10 minutes if you'd like to take it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I will wrap it up. All right. So basically, when Mercury and Mars get together, we get disaster fires. So, yeah, fortunately, they're not outbound at the same time, but we've got to watch out for that. Okay, this last one, I've put all the planets in, and notice that we've got Pluto hugging the southern boundary. We've got Saturn and Neptune hugging the equator. We've got Jupiter and Uranus hugging the northern boundary. Not as close, but pretty close. That is also something to take note of. All these planets are activated for this year, hence wild times. Okay, so major events, solstices, stations. What we've got in July, we've got Neptune and Saturn stationing. July is a month to watch out for. September, we've got Uranus stationing, we've got a lunar and a solar eclipse. November, late November, we've got Saturn and Neptune stationing, late November and early December. Late Jan and February, we've got Mars conjunct Pluto, which isn't fun. We've got Uranus stationing and a solar eclipse. And on the 20th of February, the actual Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So that is a month to just really hold tight. Okay, this is how we do actual weather astrology. We draw up the ingress chart. We read the fourth house with 50% of the judgment. Virgo, it's windy. 25% on the first, Gemini, windy. This is for Athens. 12% is given to planets in 7th and 10th. So here we've got Saturn and Neptune and Sun and Venus and Mercury. And 12% is given to the planet that defines this chart, which is Sun. And so one develops a signature. In Cape Town, we are looking at something quite different. We've got Aquarius on 4th, cold, colder than average. This is also for 20th, for the ingress now. First is Scorpio, violent with an exalted Mars. We've got Jupiter and Uranus in the first. Then in the 7th, we've got rainy moon and we've got Saturn, Neptune, as well as the sun. So that's a different flavor altogether for the season of autumn in the south. All right, this is just a little example using a lunar quarter chart. I've taken the 29 March eclipse. So in Athens, we've got Libra, which is windy, Mercury in Aries, which is violent. We've got Cancer, which is rainy, and the moon in Aries, again, the violence, destructive Pluto in the 7th, and moon in Aries in the 9th. So that, I don't think that eclipse is going to be too much fun in Athens. In Cape Town, we have got Aries on the 4th, hot. We've got Sagittarius, so it's hotter than average. We've got an eclipse sun in the 10th, and the moon is in Libra in the 10th. Okay, here we do solar mapping. I've just mapped the eclipse and put for those 7 days, I've put the sun and moon on the angles. And then I do offer, I've opened a registration for a 3-month online weather course via Zoom. It's intermediate level. One does need basic knowledge of astrology. symbolism, and so on. And you can email me at karenjames.skyguide for more info. Also, look on my website for the whole course details. So, I'd like to close out with Rumi. Rumi says, "Moon and evening star do their slow tambourine dance to praise this universe. The purpose of every gathering is discovered, to recognize beauty and to love what's beautiful." And it is chaotic times. Even Mother Earth is in a bit of a spin weather-wise, and we are in a spin socio-politically wise. But there is so much beauty. Even if you live in the middle of a very built-up environment, you can go to your shop and buy a beautiful flower to put in a vase in your home. Stay close to nature. Find the beauty. Mother Nature will help us and get us through. Also, hug your friends and cuddle your pets, because that brings out oxytocin, which is the human connectivity hormone, which we need. We as humans need to get our consciousness going to transcend the challenges. And every human that's happy, the Confucius thing, it spreads out to the whole society ultimately. So I would just like to thank Wade for the opportunity. I'd like to thank all who have attended this and who will attend and listen. It's been a great privilege and pleasure, and may you all be given the grace to appreciate and take comfort in the abundance of natural beauty which Mother Earth so generously provides for us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Karen. This was a beautiful presentation. You've got some lovely comments in the chat, so I hope you'll take some time to take a look at the chat and see what people have to say and make sure, let me stop your screen share so you can see me. There we go. Yeah, it was wonderful, really fantastic and very clear. I know that 40 minutes is tight and you nailed it, so this is very wonderful.
My first attempt was an hour and a half. And
I
I
know
thought, oh my
I
goodness.
felt that not from you specifically, but we used to do hour-long presentations, and I recently realized you can say anything you need to say in 40 minutes. You just got to strip a lot of the other stuff out, and yeah, you've shown. There it is. You did it. That was beautiful. I really appreciated getting to see the lunar declination cycle over a span of a decade or more as well. That's not a view that we get very frequently. So thank you very much for joining us. And for those of you who will be with us as we move into the next segment, we'll welcome Nick Campion to talk about comets, but that's going to start in an hour and 15 minutes. So we've got a bit of a break here before we return. So everybody, please enjoy a nice break. Grab yourself some food, rest, whatever makes sense to you, and hopefully we'll see you back in an hour and 15. Karen, thanks again.